Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the Graduate Virtual Fair and the concentration of the Masters of Arts in Applied Behavioral Analysis. My name is Mitchell Patterson, and I serve as Associate Director here at Penn State Harrisburg. With me today is Dr. Jonathan Ivey, who is the professor in charge of the ABA program. Thank you, Dr. Ivey, for joining us today.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to talk about the program.
Excellent, excellent. Well, before we get underway with the program, Dr. Ivey, can you share a little bit of your background with the audience here at Penn State Harrisburg
Absolutely.
in terms of what you do?
Mitchell, I'm not sure if you know this. I actually graduated from our Masters of Applied Behavior Analysis program in 2006.
I did not know that.
Wow. Once coming out of my undergraduate training, I had a very general degree in psychology. I knew that I wanted to work in a discipline where I could do meaningful work. I could improve the lives of individuals who needed help. That led me to psychology. After completing that, I found myself working in a youth partial residential program.
Okay.
I was working with individuals who engaged in really challenging, really severe problem behavior. And
where was that, Dr. Ivey?
Where was that?
Yeah.
That was in a rural area of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I don't want to get too specific with locations.
Sure.
So there I am. I'm eager. I'm excited to help these individuals. And I recognize that the approaches that I were using just didn't produce the kind of change that I was hoping to see. And so that led me to try this stuff called behavior analysis. At the time, I knew almost nothing about behavior analysis. I had taken a course through my undergraduate training in something called behavior modification. And I used some of the techniques, some of the principles, and what I had been unsuccessful at improving for weeks and months almost immediately changed with certain technologies of behavior analysis. And it was that experience that led me to want to devote my career, my profession to this discipline. So from that experience, I learned about Penn State ABA Master Program.
Right.
I applied in, this was 2004, finished in 2006.
Wow.
And at that point, I worked within school districts as a behavior analyst following my completion of the graduate training. I would provide support to teachers, to administrators. I traveled the county helping individuals who engage in pretty severe problem behavior learn a better way of interacting. At that point, I realized that I wanted more. I wanted to learn more about this discipline, about this science, and that led me to a PhD in applied behavior analysis at The Ohio State University.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's talk about coming full circle. Again, Dr. Ivey, I've been here for 11 and a half years and done a lot of work with all the graduate programs. That's refreshing to know that here it is homegrown.
Absolutely.
Being a part of the program itself as a product.
In that respect, the program has a very special place in my heart. It was my introduction to the discipline. Okay. It gave me so many opportunities after graduation to work in various settings with various populations. And I always knew that I was prepared to engage in high quality service.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's very, very refreshing to know, and definitely serves as an attribute to the program.
Absolutely.
We have a lot to go through today with a prepared PowerPoint presentation that I know you have about the ABA program. So before we get into that, we would just like to tell our viewing audience that the web link is where you can forward your questions to Dr. Ivey, and we'll be happy to get to as many as we possibly can as it relates to the ABA program here at Penn State Harrisburg. So without further ado, let's transition to the PowerPoint presentation, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll come back to you, the viewing audience, to talk about some of the questions you may have for us about the ABA program.
As we get started, in a little while, I want to give you some of the specifics about the program, things like admission requirements, process. But before we do that, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about this thing called applied behavior analysis. You may have heard of this. It may be a field or discipline that you work within. It may be entirely new to you. If you consider just for a moment some of the challenges that we face as a species, consider, for example, the degradation that has occurred to our planet, problems of pollution. Consider further an education system that may not be preparing future generations in the most efficient or effective way. And then perhaps maybe closer to home, consider an individual who engages in some kind of problem behavior that either hurts other people or produces injury to self. Now, these are serious challenges. However, each of these challenges have a common point of origin. They have a certain thematic relation. Each of these problems are problems of behavior. These are problems that were born of behavior. It's the product produced by this behavior that is often the problem. And so what we need is a science of behavior to best understand and best address these problems. And if you think about when we as a species, when we as humans are faced with challenges, we typically turn to the things that we do best. And one of the things that we are well equipped at doing is studying a problem, studying a challenge, studying a phenomena through some kind of systematic lens. And I'm referring to science here. And so applied behavior analysis is a science of human behavior. We attempt to understand the variables that set the occasion for certain responses to occur. And once we could understand why a response happens, why someone would hit their sister, why someone would engage in some behavior that produces self-harm, once we understand these behaviors, we're in a great position to do something about it, to use the information we gain to ultimately make a better place for us all to live in. You could think about behavior analysis as a natural science. Just like chemistry and physics seeks to understand the universal laws that govern the universe, we do something very similar, but our area of interest is behavior. Now, I could go on much longer about what is applied behavior analysis, but that's just a brief overview. If this is the first time you are considering studying this discipline, I want you to have some context in terms of what it is and what we do. So our program here is engineered, is designed to produce individuals who are competent master's level behavior analysts. We're interested in ensuring that students have the methodological skills, the technological understanding to ultimately bring about meaningful behavior change. Applied behavior analysis is a very systematic approach to changing behavior of social significance, behavior that really matters. And that's what we do. So what excites me so much about this discipline is the knowledge that we can systematically evaluate things that are challenges, things that are problems, and find meaningful and effective solutions. The program is designed to allow students upon completion to meet the requirements to take the National Certification Board exam. And so what that means is we have the coursework and experience requirements necessary and required by the Behavior Analysis Certification Board to be eligible to sit for that exam. Students also, upon completing the program, are eligible and meet the requirements, I should say the current requirements, of the Pennsylvania Behavior Specialist license. Now that is a state-specific license,
Okay.
But graduates of the program are eligible to apply for that licensure. Now I should say currently 30 states have some kind of license law for the discipline or profession of behavior analysis. And so if you're a student from another state or even internationally, our requirements, our program is set to the standard of the Behavior Analysis Certification Board. So you can have some confidence as you go to different areas that if the requirements are similar to those, that you should meet them. Mm-hmm. To give you a little bit of information about the program, we typically admit about 15 students. We admit both full-time and part-time students. This is a common question that I get from prospective students. Typically, a full-time student will study take three courses within a semester, which is about 9 credits. And then part-time students can take 3 to 6 courses. Our full-time students typically finish the program in about 2 years, although that very much depends on things like research project and internship, which we can talk about in just a little while. The program is 39 credits, and as I said, it takes about 2 years to complete. And I think what's really important for anyone interested in studying at Penn State to understand is our program both includes the coursework requirements as well as the experience requirements that are necessary to become a board-certified behavior analyst. As an additional requirement and opportunity, our students complete a master's project. And this is really a great opportunity for students to develop expertise in some area of interest to them, as well as within line of the research and expertise of the faculty here. Over the years of the program, we've had some really amazing products produced by students. I would love to be able to give you a laundry list of those projects. But just as a brief example, to also show the depth and the range of the projects, you'll notice I highlighted 3 really different projects that I think do a nice job illustrating the breadth of topics that students are able to study here. I recently worked with a student. This paper was actually submitted and then accepted for publication in a journal. The study was aimed at increasing the post-use cleaning of gym equipment after use. So what we had noticed is individuals using the gym didn't often follow through with cleaning the equipment, which is a problem of behavior, right? If you're going to the gym, you don't want to sit down in a dirty machine that might be carrying someone's sweat or bacteria or other nasty things. And so in this study, we implemented this really neat intervention, and we were able to change the gym goer's cleaning behavior as to increase it and make it more likely. We've had students who have done research related to increasing some kind of sports performance. We had one student recently who completed a project with a softball team, improving certain softball skills. And those are perhaps some of the more unique studies. We have a number of student projects that are centered around assessing and treating problem behavior for those who are typical recipients of behavior analytic services, as well as evaluating different instructional and teaching methodologies to bring about the greatest technology possible of education. I also get a lot of questions about our admission requirements. And so you'll notice here on the screen, we have 3 different areas which describe the different requirements for admission. Typically, our students we're a competitive program. We want students who are going to excel in our graduate training, and therefore we set requirements to ensure that those coming in have the requisite skills to be successful. So students come in typically with minimally a 3.0 GPA or above. We do require the GREs, and then there's a whole host of very standard types of application materials that are necessary to really evaluate that the applicant's a good fit for the program. Things like a letter of intent, 3 letters of recommendation, 2 of which should come from an academic reference. We have a unique application review as well as a unique evaluation program. And so technically we have an open enrollment, or a rolling enrollment rather, which means that until we meet our cap for that year, our admission timeframe stays open. Mm-hmm. With that said, we encourage interested applicants, especially for fall semester, to submit their application by February 14th for early consideration. This would allow an applicant to be considered for some of the scholarships and some of the GA or graduate assistant positions that we have available. And then for typical consideration, April 14th is a good deadline. Please, although as you're going through this process, reach out to one of the faculty if questions come up. We recognize that these decisions are important ones and should be made once you have all the necessary information. Generally, we encourage students to apply for the fall semester. So we do, on a case-by-case basis, accept spring admittance. However, given the recent change to our coursework, which I'll talk about in just a moment, the fall start is just a much better start for students. It allows them to fall into a set of courses in sequence that really allow the student to start with an introductory level, moving up to our more advanced content. Now, a question I get a lot is, do we offer hybrid and online courses? And I don't want to say anything disparaging about those courses. Behavior analysts are very unique professionals. On one hand, we're scientists, and that requires we have a thorough understanding of concept, philosophy, and method. On the other part, we're practitioners, which require that we have the social skills, that we have the ability to translate technology, complex interventions into a real world, messy situation. And so it is our belief that as it relates to training in behavior analysis, that's best done through a traditional face-to-face interaction. Our students come to class and they interact with experts in the discipline. That allows us to address many of the subtle challenges that a behavior analyst face. I'm really excited that we have 3 full-time tenure-track faculty that make up the core of our program. So currently, none of the courses are taught by adjuncts, and historically, they're not taught by adjuncts. What that means is you're getting a faculty person who is thoroughly invested in the program. All the faculty, Dr. Kladowski, Dr. Schreck, are behavior analysts by training, all have extensive experience applying this science in a broad range of settings, from residential to community to home-based locations, as well as a broad range of applications. Now, I'm excited to announce that starting in fall of 2019, we will be implementing the most recent requirements of the Behavior Analysis Certification Board. And unless you're thoroughly, you've thoroughly evaluated these requirements, this can be a little bit confusing. But what's important to know that starting in fall 2019, our program is going to meet the requirements necessary that go into place a few years in the future. So students are getting essentially the very best programming available. We're going to have courses that new courses that offer additional training in things like supervision and staff management. Just so you can get a bit of a sense of what the course of study looks like, you'll notice on your screen a potential course sequence. This is the current course sequence starting in fall 2019. And we are very thoughtful and systematic in how courses are offered and where they fall. It's our goal that in going through the coursework, whether you be a full-time or part-time student, you're ensured success. That as you get to those later courses, you have the foundational skills necessary to understand and make the most of the content. So during our fall, we start out with our basic methods class, which really I like to think of as a class on logic for behavior analysis. This is how we evaluate the behaviors we're interested in a very scientific way. We study things like measurement and defining responses. In our ABA 533 class, we go through the basic principles of applied behavior analysis, and from that foundation, more advanced courses are built. You'll now notice our year 2 course sequence. What's really unique, if you'll notice in year 2, is whereas year 1 is heavily focused on developing foundational content, the skills necessary to be effective in practice, in year 2, students start their internship, which is an intensive placement where they get to practice the skills that were taught that first year. In addition to the second year, we have a certain advanced courses that are offered, and students typically start their research projects at this time. If you're new to behavior analysis, you may not quite be aware of the opportunity that's available, both within the state, across the nation, and then even internationally. There was a recent report by the Behavior Analysis Certification Board in 2018 that showed that demand for behavior analysts, especially highly trained and highly qualified behavior analysts, increased by approximately about 800%. And what this means is there's a significant need for individuals who have the skills necessary to walk into a very difficult, challenging situation and be successful. And when I say successful, I mean bring about meaningful behavior change. Many of our students have multiple job offers even before they finish the program. At a broader level, we have students who have gone on to receive doctoral training in applied behavior analysis or some other related area. We have students who go on to either become CEOs of companies, start service providers, become clinical directors. So over the years, our students have really spread far and wide, both locally, nationally, and even internationally, working at a variety of levels. A recent graduate might work as a behavior analyst. A common area of focus would be developing interventions for individuals who have autism. And from there, many of our students go on to take higher level positions within organizations as they develop skills and develop further expertise. Now, the exciting time is we get to talk to the audience.
Absolutely. Well, we're back. Well, Dr. Ivy, that is more than my anticipation. You know, I've had an opportunity to do a lot of these virtual fairs here, and I think about the ABA program clearly falling within the realm of psychology, but I did not, you know, I would not have made the connection between a CEO with an ABA degree.
Yeah.
You know, so that for me, I think speaks volume of the breadth and the depth of the program that we have here at Penn State Harrisburg in the ABA program. So for our viewing audience, we would definitely like to take as many questions as we possibly can within the time frame that we have. Again, at the registration link, it was harrisburg.psu.edu/admission/online-open-house. So it's a lot to say, needless to say, but if you were at the webinar link, you can start formulating your questions, and we'll be happy to take as many as we possibly can. But we've also have some questions for the audience that I receive a lot during my travels and talking to potential graduate students. Yes. So if I may, I would like to go to some of the reference questions that we have here. Again, it's sort of one of the things that serves as a reference for me is when you talk about ABA, you know, most people will think about psychology having an undergrad degree. But what if a person doesn't have a psych background or has something in social behavioral sciences? Are they still eligible to apply to the program?
Absolutely. I think it's important to understand that behavior analysis is a discipline as opposed to a field of study. And we have students who come to us from many different areas of study. So really, as long as the undergraduate degree is somehow related to either behavioral health, education, mental health, speech occupational therapy, all these things would be acceptable degrees to be considered for admission.
Mm-hmm. And how about with the faculty and the research? You spoke a little bit about research opportunities. One of the things that I get a lot with regards to any graduate degree program, but in particular for ABA, what are the research opportunities to print or publish, I should say, the research project, or to go to a conference, present at a conference on behalf of ABA here at Penn State Harrisburg? What does it look like? Can you frame that for us?
Yes. Well, our three faculty, again, myself, Dr. Glodowski, Dr. Schreck, all have very active research agendas. And we are often looking for student participation, student involvement. So there are a number of projects that are happening right now where students are actively engaged in the research process, whether that be at a higher level, where a student, say, for their thesis and participation with the faculty, may be taking steps to plan the project, actually develop the methodology and implement it, all the way to some earlier research experience where a student may participate with the faculty, help with data collection, help with data analysis. So we really offer the full spectrum of experiences, and we're really interested and excited to work with students who understand the value of that activity. In behavior analysis, what you understand is research and practice are very similar. And so research may be a scary thing to some of our audience. They may have perhaps never thought about engaging in research activity. Perhaps their focus is more clinical or practical. I really try to make clear to our students that in behavior analysis, research and practice don't have that divide. Good practice, by definition, uses the same process, mechanics, and method as research.
Wow. Okay. And how about, you talked a little bit about can graduates become licensed in
Sure.
behavioral analysis? The next step for Penn State Harrisburg or within the state of Pennsylvania, what's going on for this community?
Yeah, well, specific to Pennsylvania, there's actually a lot going on right now. And if I had a crystal ball, I'd love to make some predictions, but I won't do that. Currently, moving through the Pennsylvania legislative system is a law to actually offer licensure for behavior analysts. Now, this is the direction that states are going. Currently, 30 states offer some kind of a licensed law where the standards are associated or are directly equivalent to the requirements set by the Behavior Analysis Certification Board. That kind of legalese is not my area of expertise per se, but I'm really encouraged to see that both at a local level, Pennsylvania, and then at a national level, this discipline and the unique expertise that the practitioners have is being recognized. And year by year, we're seeing more and more states offer licensure for behavior analysts.
You mentioned in terms of the two pathways about part-time and full-time. Talk to the audience again about, you gave it an incredible number, about an 800% demand or 800% increase among analysts. What does that look like, and what does that mean in layman's terms, I guess, is if I had to ask the question?
Yeah, well, I really want to stress that these are very individual, idiosyncratic issues, but generally speaking, our graduates are incredibly high demand. Just as an example, each year we have an annual conference. This is the national conference, the Association for Applied Behavior Analysis. This is their big annual event, and it happens.
Typically take place.
It actually bounces around the country.
Oh, it does. Okay.
So I think last year was San Diego. This year is Chicago. So our students often attend the conference. Those who can financially do so. Many of our students present. A good portion of our students present at the conference. And at the conference is an expo, and this is a place where there are hundreds, I think literally hundreds of potential employers. We've had students who go to this expo and again have received multiple job offers. Now, again, I can't guarantee that, but if you can focus on being a high quality behavior analyst, the best behavior analyst that you can be, generally there's lots of opportunity that follows.
Okay. Well, one thing that I'm often asked when it comes to recruiting students for the program, you talk about graduate assistantships and teachers assistantships. Can you spend a little bit more time in terms of, if I'm a FTE, full-time student, what's my responsibility to the program, the layout and logistics as it relates to service with ABA? What does my 9 credits look like, if you will, for that semester year?
So what it looks like very much depends on where you are in the program. So to start out, we immerse you in the content, in the history of behavior analysis. We take you from a very introductory starting point and make sure that you have a solid foundation upon which to develop the later techniques and skills to be an effective behavior analyst. So the first year, we offer courses that relate to the philosophy of behaviorism, the basic methods that allow you to study behavior in a very scientific, systematic way, as well as the basic principles and concepts that govern the way that we evaluate behavior. So this is the bedrock. If there's cracks, if it's not on solid ground, the skills that come later, well, it becomes a problem. In the second year and then in later courses, we focus more so on then the technical application. And so as an example, we have a course where students learn how to conduct functional behavior assessments. This is basically a scientific, systematic process to identify and study the variables that set the occasion for a certain behavior. Let's imagine we work with an individual who is aggressive. This person, maybe when we ask them to do some kind of work or ask them to clean their room, they'll attack us, they'll attack their parents. We assume that behavior has a cause. There's a reason that person's doing that. And if we can understand the variables that set the occasion for that response, we're going to be in a much better position to actually develop an intervention. So once we have the bedrock of behavior analysis, the principles, the philosophy, the method, we then teach those more complex skills, how to conduct assessment, how to develop interventions. So that ensures that our students are well versed in the science of behavior analysis. we want to be very careful that we don't produce students who have to follow a cookbook, have to follow a recipe, if you will,
Right.
A specific task, because often the situations that we are faced with, there is no recipe book. There is no here's how to do it guide. We're
Right.
often pioneers in developing intervention for some really unique, challenging situations.
Mm-hmm. And with that, I know oftentimes graduate school sort of has a own entity to itself by way of community. You know, do we have community here, a supportive community for students that are embarking on graduate school in general, but things that are tied into the ABA program specifically?
Absolutely. That community is a really important thing for the program,
Right.
which is actually one of the reasons, another reason why we move towards the more traditional programming where students meet face to face.
Right.
I was struck early on in my training that here I am when I was a student, sitting side by side another fellow student.
Right.
What I was amazed with is after graduation, how often we came in contact with each other. And we
Okay.
really make this point clear to our students that the person, your classmate, is a future colleague. We're not such a large discipline that you're never going to see each other again.
Right.
And so the extent that you develop this community, this network really allows you to be a competent professional, and it lets you have resources. I'd often call classmates even after I graduate and ask questions or present cases to get some assistance if necessary. So we work really hard to try to create that sense of community. Typically a few times a year, we offer some kind of ABA event. Maybe we go out to dinner. Each year we have an annual event where all the students, alumni, faculty get together. And then our alumni are often very interested in the program. And so I'll often have alumni sit in my classes occasionally, especially to hear student presentations or hear about new student research projects.
Wow, excellent, excellent. Well, in tying in with that, in terms of, you mentioned 3 full-time faculty, all with terminal degrees in ABA.
Just to clarify, my degree, for example, is in applied behavior analysis and special education.
Okay.
I actually don't know if I could speak to the name on the degree,
Okay.
but they're all trained in behavior analysis as
okay.
well as other areas. Dr. Schreck, for example, is a trained clinical psychologist.
Wow.
Exactly. That's a great resource, but also has formal training in behavior analysis.
So with that being said, with ABA students, do they have an opportunity to be immersed in teaching, having an opportunity to teach while in the program, you know, clearly under the supervision of one of the 3 faculty that are here? So I'm trying to tie that into, what does that look like? And
you know,
talk a little bit about that.
I was surprised after graduating myself at how often and frequently I was asked to give trainings and workshops. And I try to be really clear to our students that they're good behavior analysts. It's only a matter of time before someone knocks on their door and asks for that workshop or for that training. And so baked into certain courses are opportunities to get that kind of experience. We look at our class time as sacred time. So although I would love to put a student at the helm, I also recognize that they're still a student. And so although we provide opportunities to give trainings, to present about research projects, I have a presentation coming up, in fact, where students have prepared a 1-hour workshop for an audience of their choosing related to some basic concept of learning. And that exercise is designed to help challenge the student to begin to figure out how is it that they would disseminate the discipline to perhaps a non-behavior analytic audience.
Okay, excellent, excellent. I'm not sure how are we on time, but I'm getting cues from my producer. We have about 5 minutes. So again, please, the viewing audience, if you have any questions, please forward them to our attention, to Dr. Ivy's attention. We'll be happy to answer them. So with the remaining 5 minutes, how do you want to summarize ABA? For our viewing audience, or the audience that will, tune in at a later date.
Absolutely,
but learning more about the program.
Well, I think the world needs behavior analysts. I think that we have a very unique perspective that is necessary to address a lot of the challenges that we face. If you consider some of the other sciences that produce technology, like computers and new materials, that's important scientific advancement. But we also need is an advancement in the science of behavior. Because ultimately, the extent to which we use these technologies, the extent to which we live healthy lives, the extent to which we exercise, eat the right foods, these are all issues of behavior. And so we as behavior analysts are in a great position to understand how to create environments, how to create programs and interventions as to allow us to live happy and healthier lives. I think our program is unique in that it is built upon that foundation of quality behavior analysis. You'll notice our degree is not a program in education and ABA, psychology and ABA. The program is wholly grounded in applied behavior analysis,
which is unique. When just by those reference pieces alone, that's really, really unique.
I think it's a really important thing for students to consider in terms of where they study and what they study. And so that means all the coursework our students take is grounded in that discipline. And so that ensures that as they start out the program, as they move through the program, they're developing the skills necessary to be an effective scientist and practitioner.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you. Once again, it was a pleasure to have you here,
pleasure.
Dr. Jonathan Ivey, who serves as the professor in charge of the Applied Behavioral Analysis Program here at Penn State Harrisburg. Again, we look forward to hearing from you. And if you have any further questions, you can always contact Dr. Jonathan Ivey at our webpage, at our homepage, and go under the ABA program. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.